Hello everyone, it's Catherine here. This looks like a lot of different of a setup than I usually have, and the reason for that is I am a very busy person. I'm enjoying my life here in Japan, but I work a lot and I'm very busy, and I keep thinking I want to sit down and make a video, be dressed nice, and make everything nice, but I just don't have the time. So I just decided, you know what? Forget it. I'm just gonna sit down and I'm going to record this and just put it up there for y'all. Because I have some information I wanted to share from the survey results that I asked everyone to do. And so many of you wonderful people responded and took the survey, and that's fantastic. And thank you for dealing with the mess up where I sent out the wrong survey and had to retake it back and send out a new one, but I have the correct information now. So I wanted to go through that. Originally, I was going to make a blog post about it, but I decided against that because there's so much information, and it just seems like a better idea to do a summary here of the most important or interesting information. And I will put the complete set of information in a Google Doc, which I will link below. If you're interested and you want to see exactly the information I got, if for some reason you think I'm lying, I don't know, it will all be there. But for the sake of not taking 4 hours to give you all of this information, I just wanted to do the quick version. So that's what we're doing today. I'm going to go through the information that I think is the most interesting or relevant, or outliers or other important information that I wanted to share, and we'll just look at it together. So let's get started. So the first thing that I wanted to go over, and pardon if I'm looking at my information, but the first thing I wanted to go over together was the people who answered the question, which of these best describes you, and talked about, am I Mori, am I lifestyle Mori, am I not Mori at all, because I think those are kind of important. So I want to go over that first. The main questions I asked were as follows. 1. I wear Mori fashion and practice a lifestyle and consider myself a Mori person. I wear Mori fashion and consider myself a Mori person. I practice Mori lifestyle and consider myself a Mori person, so splitting it into 2 groups. Then I had I used to wear it or practice a lifestyle. I may or may not consider myself a Mori person. I used to practice a lifestyle, but I've never worn the fashion. May or may not consider myself. I've never worn the fashion, but I consider myself Mori, or I do not consider myself Mori at all. Hello everyone, Catherine from the future here. I just wanted to add, this is a document I've created for the full details about the survey. I wanted to add that there was an oversight that I didn't do in the original survey that I've since changed in the document. The oversight is not including those who used to wear only the style and were not involved in the lifestyle at all, and I created a new type for those. So if you want the full breakdown with numbers and everything, you can see that here on the doc, which I will be linking below. I'm not going to give the percentages here because it's kind of wonky. There's so many people who gave their own answer, which I will go over the important ones in a minute. So if you want to see the in-depth data of that, I will put the pie chart and the information in the Google Doc, so you can check the exact percentages. But I'm just going to guesstimate the amounts. So the largest one was, I do wear Mori fashion and I practice lifestyle and I consider myself a Mori person. There's quite a few other people who answered things such as, I wear Mori or kind of Mori, I consider myself Mori. I wear Mori sometimes and sometimes do the lifestyle. I wear Mori and I sometimes do things that are kind of Mori. So all of those I would consider to be in that group. I meant in more of a broad term, right, that you are Mori, you consider yourself Mori, you do the lifestyle. So whatever depth of that you want to take, if you wear it casually or you practice it casually, then that's whatever. It doesn't really matter to me. So I'm lumping all of those together for clarity's sake. So that is definitely by far the largest amount. The second one is going to be, I wear Mori fashion and consider myself Mori. So they don't take the lifestyle aspect, which I was surprised to see being the second biggest one, because I feel like there's a large amount of people who are very vocal lifestylers for some reason or another. There were a few outliers in the 1% of extra answers that would also lump into that. We also had a few people who said they just do the lifestyle, but it wasn't quite as many as I expected. Again, you can look at the doc for that information. And I had quite a few that said they used to and they don't anymore, which I expected. So that information was mostly what I expected, besides the lifestyle aspect, of course. But what I did not expect was that 10 people straight up said, no hesitation, I do not consider myself a Mori person. If you are one of those people, thank you for taking the time to do this survey. why did you take it? I really, really want to know. I'm so curious. It's such a long survey, so I was very surprised. I put that in there just in case, and I'm very surprised to see how many numbers there were. So keeping that in mind, there might be a little bit of a skewed data set because there are people who don't consider themselves part of the community answering these questions. I was originally going to isolate those answers and see if they differed, but I don't have the time. So if someone else wants to do that, go ahead. But I just thought that was interesting. So now I want to go over quickly some interesting answers I got. These are 1% unique answers that I just thought were kind of interesting or gave a little bit of insight onto some of the people answering the survey. I had quite a few that said I want to be or I'm new to Mori, which I wish I had added as an opportunity for an answer, but I didn't. So there's that. I also have people who are like, I've tried it a few times, so I would have also lumped that together in my answers. And again, I had quite a few that said that the label is too restrictive, which I understand. But when I say, are you a Mori person, what I mean is like, do you consider yourself a part of the community? So I should have been more clear about that if anyone is confused on that. I had quite a few people who also said, I have similar interests and things that overlap, and my style is very similar, but I wouldn't consider myself Mori, which I thought was very interesting. So I'm not sure if, again, that's miscommunication on my part, but there were some of those. My favorite answer was, I don't know, I like the aesthetic. So thank you for being honest. Yeah, that was interesting. That's basically all the information there. Nothing too life-changing or groundbreaking, but I did think it was interesting to go over some of those answers there. So the next thing I want to look at is which of the substyles have you heard of? This one I'll give you the exact percentages because I didn't have any like variable answers. So the highest number of votes went towards Dark Mori, which I expected. They're pretty closely tied, and I think most people generally know about Dark Mori, or at least can understand what the concept is, even if they don't know much about it. The second biggest one was Natural K / Pink Owl Style. I made sure to include both of those names in there, so we got both groups of people who might know it from different names. The third biggest one was Dolly K, and underneath that, in order, it goes very closely together, Yamake, Hamake, Cult Party K. I was pretty surprised to see Cult Party K is the lowest. That's kind of interesting, but I guess it's kind of a fad that's come and gone. It was very popular when I joined the community. Then the last thing I want to go into before we talk about any individual interesting bits of information for the photos I use themselves is I wanted to talk about the question, what things make something Mori to you? This question, I gave people free rein. I got a ton of answers, and some really in-depth, some of them quick little buzzwords. What I chose to do with this information, again, I will include these the full information if you want to see every single bit of someone's answer. But what I chose to do was to make a word cloud, because I think that most of these things could be summed up into one descriptive word. If they couldn't, there were a few things that I just kind of like, it was a one-off, and it wouldn't have been very big in the word cloud anyways, but I kind of left those out. Not very many, but I have few. But mostly I was able to describe them in sort of similar themed words, so I have a word cloud that I put together for that. I'll have the word cloud up here on the screen while I'm talking, but I will also have this word cloud in the Google Doc so you can look at it closely and zoom in and zoom out. I'm going to go over this pretty briefly. I don't feel like it's important to mention every word, but I'll go over some of the big ones and some ones that surprised me. The biggest ones you can see obviously from just glancing at it: earth tones, layers, neutrals, forest, nature, natural, flowing, and comfortable. Also textures is pretty big too. I'd say all of those are pretty basic ideas that I would agree with completely, and I expected to see, especially like layers is huge, obviously. I was a little surprised neutrals was the largest, but it does make sense. It's nothing too crazy. Some other things that I saw that I thought were interesting that I wouldn't have thought of, but that do make sense to me, is like quirky or whimsical, also fairy tale, mismatched. Things like vintage was interesting. I got quite a few of those, which I wouldn't necessarily have considered. Then there are a few other things in there as well that are interesting, like rustic. I thought was kind of an interesting way to describe it, and some other things as well. But for time's sake, I won't go into any more than that. But I would recommend downloading the file, taking a look at it, or at least just popping into the Google Drive. There were some definitely interesting answers. What I do want to do is go over, word by word, a couple, like only a few, really interesting answers that people gave me that I wanted to just highlight. One I got was, first thought is if you could see a cottage witch wearing it, which I think is really interesting, and I think is bleed over from the Strega community that was created off of Mori, because Mori itself is not particularly witchy fashion, and well, although like you can definitely overlap or see, you know, like your witchy character wearing that, that is not particularly what Mori is, which I thought was very interesting. Not that it's wrong, but yeah, I just thought it was interesting. Would not be the way I would choose to automatically describe Mori. I also got a really interesting comment that I thought was good to read. They said, "The layers are the most important bit as far as I'm aware. That's what usually alerts me to the fact that something is Mori before I see what the person wearing it considers the outfit to be." And I think that's a really good point, because sometimes I'll see stuff and like I'll be like, "Ooh, that's Mori," and they won't tag it that, and I'll be like, okay, that's just their personal style, but it definitely has the same aesthetic. Or the opposite can be true. Someone will tag something Mori and I will see it and go, that doesn't look like Mori, because it's got that like knee-jerk reaction of if there's layers, you're like, it's Mori. So yeah, I thought that was interesting. It doesn't necessarily always have to be true, but definitely like something interesting to think about. I also got someone who was confused about the distinction between classic Mori and Cult Party. I had made an extensive post on that, so please take a look at it. I'll link it below. They're pretty different. I got someone else who pointed out in there that I did include some Hamake and Yamake photos in this survey. I did on purpose, because I wanted to see how people would categorize them, so I'll get to that in a minute. My favorite answer was, "If I look like a Hobbit hybrid, I am doing good." And I love that. It's really fun. Hobbit hybrid, that's great. I would not think of that as like automatically Mori, but I love it. Like that's really creative. Thank you. I got one person that answered only the word woolen, like wool, the fabric. So that was interesting. Yeah, that's pretty much everything for that. Just some interesting answers on their own. So the next thing I want to do is go over the pictures, and the easiest way I could think of to do that was to clump them together based on the average answer I got. So I had the 1 to 5 rating scale, so I took the highest answer kind of and made that the final like rating for how Mori this is. I was going to go through again and do like individual outliers that I thought were interesting, but again, no time. So instead I'm doing the average. The average was hard to calculate for some, because sometimes like 4 and 5 or like 1 and 2 would be almost the same. So the way I chose to categorize it was more broad, so that way it reflected things better. So I have categorized from 1 to 2, which is not Mori at all, bit Mori, slight Mori themes. Then I have midway, or 3, which is could be Mori but could be something else. Those ones were usually very clear, so I didn't have any troubles there. And then I have 4 and 5 together, which is counts as Mori fashion, or it's definitely Mori fashion. You can tell with a glance. So I put all of those together and I made collages of all of those images, so I'm going to put them up and flash them on the screen here and kind of give an overview of what I saw. Then I'm going to take some time for a couple images that I think were kind of surprising. There's only a few, so we're almost done already, but I'll go over those together. So I want to start with 4 to 5 because I feel like that's the most interesting and the most, like, proves my hypothesis, I guess, to see if do you guys really know what Mori fashion is, which, again, I can't choose what exactly Mori is. I'm not the end-all be-all of Mori fashion, but I was really pleased to see that the majority of images, it was very easy for people to recognize what was really easily Mori. So that kind of, to me, was kind of encouraging, because I think a lot of times with cluttered hashtags and the fashion sort of dying out, I worry that the original intent of Mori will be lost as things start to change and evolve. And it looks like that's not the case. Even if people are expressing Mori in different ways, the core of it people still know and enjoy, and that's really awesome. I think a lot of these images are ones that regularly circulate in the community, so in some ways this might be a little skewed because maybe people have seen these specific images before, especially if you've been in the community for a long time. For Midway, this is where things kind of get a little strange to me. We start to see some really mixed results here. I'll get into the outliers here in a minute, which I think are really interesting, but I will just say these ones are more colored, they're less layered, so generally they don't have that distinct knee-jerk reaction for some people. Yeah, more varied information. Then here we're starting to see actually some substyles and similar styles, like this is Yama-Kei, and also Cult Party Kei you can see here, as well as some Pink House Natural Kei type style. There's also this image, which again I'll get more into later, but which is actually not Mori Kei at all, which I shoved in there, and then there's some Lagan look as well. The last one, I am pleased to note, is the 1-2, and all of the ones that were very clearly not Mori, people were able to recognize pretty clearly. There were, of course, people who answered, and again, you can look at the information on the individual images in the drive, but in general, people were able to recognize what is and isn't Mori. But some very interesting outliers, which I want to talk about and highlight. If you've been in the community a long time, you might already know some of these, but you might not. So let's start with the 4-5s. Mainly, there's nothing surprising here to me. But one thing that is surprising is this image here. Not because it isn't Mori, but because I expected that it wouldn't be something people would consider Mori. It is Mori. It's from one of the original Mori Girl lessons, but it's very dark colors. The layering is just kind of not over the top. It looks pretty plain for a Mori outfit. So I was very surprised to see it get into the 4 and 5. I was also a little surprised with this photo because although it circulates a lot in the Mori community, I feel like from a glance, it could be more like 3 to 4 range, like more midway. So I wasn't sure what people would do with it. So I was very surprised to see it easily be pushed into the Mori category. Midway is where it starts to get really interesting. So I'm going to put up here all of the images that were rated as like a solid 3 that are from Mori Girl Lessons or Mori Girl magazines, and those are these here. I'm also putting up the street fashion one here. In fact, this image, this is Choco. Well, not Choco, the person, but this is from Choco's Mori Girl Lesson book, the like first real book saying what Mori Kei is. She styled this coordinate herself. So it is definitely Mori, and I found it very, very interesting that this particular image, especially when the 2 other images I included from her, which is clearly the same model in the same room, were easily pushed into 4 and 5. So the fact that this particular image for some reason was not is very interesting to me. Also, this one as well, which personally, if I look at this style, I don't really consider it Mori, but that's like your personal opinion, so it's whatever. But these 2 models were in quite a few natural fashion Mori Kei things at the time, so they've, like, this image has been shared by Mori people quite a lot in the early community. 1 and 2 are not so much surprising, but I just wanted to go over just some interesting information here about a few photos. So this one, I actually found on a news website, a Japanese news website that was talking about Mori Kei, and they used it as an example of the fashion. And I was like, oh, that's very clearly not. So it was very interesting to see. Hey everyone, Catherine from the future here again. I just wanted to add that if you are interested in knowing more about my personal opinions and feelings about this data, I will be posting a personal kind of reflection post on my blog at some point. No guarantees about when, like I've said many times already, I am quite busy, but if you are interested, keep an eye out for that. Okay, so that's a lot of information, but thank you for taking the time to go through this with me. I hope this was interesting for you like it was interesting for me. I had a really lot of fun looking through all the information here. I'm still kind of going through the individual answers because I got some interesting responses. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed. If you want to take a look again at the more in-depth details, take a look at that Google Doc when it's live. And yeah, thank you for everyone who answered this and took the time out of your day to go through all these questions. It's been really interesting for me to see some of what people think about the fashion and ways that it has evolved and not evolved, which I think is very interesting. So again, thank you so much for your time, and I'll look forward to seeing you all next time. So see you later. Bye.